Yuya was an ugly, easygoing buffoon whose only win in life was being stalked by a freaky girl. However, when she gets isekai'd by Truck-kun, her intense desire to get bent over makes her possess his new stepsister so they can keep it in the family. Yuya suddenly wakes up one morning only to find a new girl in his home. Later, while they have breakfast, his parents introduce him to Mitsuki, his newly adopted stepsister, but she soon gets uncomfortable and leaves the dining table. Getting to school later, Yuya tells his equally ugly friend that he now has a little sister, and the idiot becomes jealous. Surprised, Yuya reminds him that he has a little sister too, but the cultured moron who has watched too many brother and stepsister corn scenarios replies that his own is his biological sister, but Yuya doesn't understand the trash he is onto. Then the dimwit begins to ask him silly questions like if Yuya has cuddled her yet, but Yuya tells him the girl just came in yesterday, and she has not even said a word to him yet. Later during the class, Yuya sees Mitsuki running outside in their PE class and reasons that she is too slow, but is surprised when he sees her smiling with another classmate. Several hours later, after school, he tries talking with her by apologizing for barging in on her earlier that morning, and she tells him sorry too for using his room before walking away. He wonders how to break the ice between them, and remembering his father telling him to treat her as family, he walks after her, trying to engage her in a conversation, but she keeps walking. However, as she walks up the stairs, she suddenly zones out and falls off, but Yuya quickly catches her as she loses consciousness. Mitsuki wakes up at the hospital, and seeing her, Yuya asks about her well-being. Meanwhile, she suddenly notices a change in her body, but not realizing this, Yuya decides to go grab a drink for her. However, she suddenly attempts to stand up from the bed, shocking Yuya, who immediately tries to stop her, but she hugs him intimately, surprising him. She instantly comes back to her senses and kicks him off, shocking him. The doctor wonders what just happened, and he tells the doctor he wouldn't believe it if he told him. Later that evening, on her way home with Yuya's mom, the mom tells her she will be living alone with Yuya from now on, since she and her husband will be away for a while, advising her to try to get along with Yuya. Upon getting home, Mitsuki runs into her room immediately and collapses on her bed as she begins to think about what happened earlier. She reasons that it was as though she was watching herself from outside her body hugging Yuya that way and wonders what had happened. She also remembers seeing a ghost while she walked the stairs who instantly possessed her, knocking her off her body, which caused her to fall. A few minutes later, while she tries to change her uniform, she notices something around her waist, and upon removing her skirt, she is shocked to see that her floodgates now have a lock. She wonders if this was placed by the hospital, but a ghost named Hiyori suddenly appears and tells her it's a chastity belt, scaring her. Just then, the ghost grapples her and possesses her body, knocking her soul out instantly. Mitsuki becomes scared that she might be dead, but becomes shocked when she sees the ghost, now in her body, touching herself as Nia Khalifa does. She feels violated and immediately reclaims her body, but the ghost takes it up a notch by getting naughty with her instead as Mitsuki begins to make happy noises. Hiyori continues to play with her body until the chastity belt gets filled with sticky juice. Afterward, Mitsuki asks her how to get the belt off, and Hiyori tells her she just needs to press the gauge. After pressing it, Mitsuki gets pissed and asks for her panties, but Hiyori feigns ignorance. She immediately suspects that Mitsuki wants to pee, and Mitsuki, not seeing her panties, sneaks to the bathroom to avoid being seen. However, as she sits on the toilet seat to release her salty water, she realizes that the chastity belt has locked again. Then, Hiyori reveals that the chastity belt only gets unlocked for 3 minutes, and once it's locked like that, it can only be unlocked again after an hour. Hearing this, Mitsuki becomes shocked and asks how the stupid ghost expects her to use the bathroom with that, to which Hiyori replies that this is the essence of the 3-minute window. As she blames the ghost in frustration, Yuya's mom arrives home and overhears her talking alone, causing her to ask if she is mad or something, but Mitsuki denies talking to anyone. Yuya soon returns home and realizes that Mitsuki has been in the bathroom for almost an hour, making him worried as he asks what is wrong with her. Mitsuki, feeling really pressed, already finds it difficult to talk, but when Yuya won't leave her alone, she yells at him, saying she is really fine. Hiyori gets jealous that she is getting to talk with Yuya and immediately enters Mitsuki's body, but becomes unable to move as she realizes that doing that will force out salty water from her floodgates. Mitsuki repossesses her body and holds her urine with all the power she can summon until the hour is up, and she finally unlocks the chastity belt, giving her a Cloud9 experience as she empties her bowls. Following this, in Mitsuki's room, Hiyori happily talks about Yuya, referring to him as her brother, which prompts Mitsuki to ask why she is calling him that. She asks how she is related to him, and tells her to get her ass off into nirvana already since she is a ghost, but Hiyori replies that there are a few conditions she has to meet before she can. Mitsuki wonders what those are, and Hiyori replies that this is why she needs Mitsuki's body, but since Mitsuki has been stubborn about letting go, they might have to cooperate together. Hiyori then transports her to another dimension in a vacuum with 2 stairs on which they are standing, and a gate of heaven above them beyond their reach. Hiyori then begins to explain that she was once alive, but was isekai'd on the highway by Truck-kun, and found herself stuck in this vacuum afterward. She adds that all she can remember is that she died before she could confess her love for her big brother Yuya, even though she does not remember what kind of relationship she had with him, having lost all her memories of her past. Mitsuki feels pity for her, and Hiyori instantly takes it as her willingness to help her as she immediately turns to the Heaven's Gate to declare that Mitsuki will be helping her. Hiyori further explains that those who couldn't die completely like her have to climb up to the Gate of Heaven to cross over. She shows her the step they just built, but Mitsuki doesn't understand, and Hiyori proceeds by saying that the heart on her chastity belt measures how satisfied she is with her love life. So whenever she gets messy and develops plot, it gets filled up, which thereby builds the steps until she can finally reach the Gate of Heaven. She adds this is why she needs Mitsuki's body, so she can develop all the plots she couldn't with Yuya before she died. Mitsuki objects to this, but Hiyori calmly tells her she has no choice but to help her or she will be stuck with the chastity belt forever, making her sad. The next day at school, when it's time for their gym class, Mitsuki goes to change in the toilet instead of the locker room because she doesn't want anyone to see her sus waist belt or she might make the news. Getting to the track field, Hiyori gets excited because they are in the same class with Yuya, but Mitsuki looks like she swallowed a live frog and says she hates the gym class because the only thing she is faster than is your outdated iPhone 6. She is soon called for a 100-meter dash, and as she reluctantly heads for the track, Hiyori offers to run the race for her. As soon as the race begins, she picks up immediately like Usain Bolt and beats the record of the fastest in the school. Everyone is surprised that she is actually good at running, and she walks with shoulders high as Yuya stares at her. This makes Mitsuki uncomfortable, but Hiyori tells her they have to show Yuya their good sides to boost his love for them. However, Mitsuki replies that she doesn't give a fuck if he likes her or not, but Hiyori shocks her that if she doesn't get naughty with Yuya as fast as possible, the satisfaction level will steadily drop, and she will fall from that step and die too. Mitsuki returns to her classmates feeling sad by the information she just heard, and she suddenly becomes pressed. However, she is too shy to excuse herself to go to the restroom. Seeing that she is too sluggish, Hiyori possesses her body and asks the teacher for permission to use the restroom, and as she runs off, Yuya notices her. Later in the locker room, as she prepares to go to the restroom while blaming Hiyori for embarrassing her before the class that way, Yuya appears, worried that she might be feeling unwell. So he grabs her hand and forcefully takes her to the infirmary to get checked by the nurse. While he goes to call the nurse, Mitsuki is at the point of peeing on her body, and as she struggles to keep her valve shut, Hiyori suggests she fertilizes the flower vase just a few inches away instead. However, as she attempts to carry out this mischievous act, Yuya and the nurse walk in, shocking her as she juices on her body. Following this, she feels very ashamed that Yuya saw that and desires to die as she can't face him like this. Hearing this, Hiyori shows her the highway and tells her there's always a Truck-kun nearby looking for the next victim to give a lift to heaven. Mitsuki becomes speechless after this, and Hiyori tells her she is jealous that Yuya was worried about her. Just then, her aunt, Nanami, appears and gives her a lift home. Getting home, as Mitsuki removes her shoes, Yuya suddenly opens the bathroom door, not knowing she is back, and when she sees all he's packed in 4K, she becomes scared by how big that D is. After a while Mitsuki bathes, Hiyori does her best to convince her to try to get along with Yuya, but she remains unwilling, prompting Hiyori to ask if she is tired of living. A few moments later, Hiyori changes into her birthday suit and joins Mitsuki in the tub to begin another PG scene, which Mitsuki enjoys even though she pretends not to.
You sussy baka!
Later, after their ungodly act, Mitsuki stands up to leave but finds out the door is jammed. Yuya notices this and offers to help her open it since it can still be opened from his side. However, as he attempts to open it, naughty Hiyori takes over Mitsuki's body and draws him inside, shocking him. Mitsuki quickly jumps into the tub in embarrassment and accuses the innocent boy of entering.
What'd I do?
Yuya tries to open the door but can't, leaving both of them stuck in the same bathroom and wondering what to do. After trying several times, times, Yuya finally gives up and says they will have to shout out for help. Seeing Mitsuki still uncovered in the tub, he removes his vest intending to give it to her, but Mitsuki gets defensive thinking bro is about to show him his big stuff again. After wearing his vest, they both sit down, and while Mitsuki feels uncomfortable, Yuya tells her he has never had a girl in his life, so he doesn't know how to approach her. He apologizes for anything he might have done to her, which makes her irritated with him, but she replies that he doesn't have to worry because she is known to always be an angry bird. Yuya reveals that his mother passed away before he even knew her, and his father always being away because of his job always makes him lonely, so he was happy when he heard he now had a sister. However, Mitsuki replies that she hated it because she had to forcefully change her surname and is finding it difficult to adapt after the scumbag she calls her father got involved with a young lady, causing a divorce with her mom. Afterward, the stupid man pushed them out, but her mom never recovered from this experience because she couldn't live without a magnum going in and out of her frequently, causing her to date and break up with multiple scumbags like her husband. Hearing this, Yuya tells her that they will not do the same to her, but she defends that he doesn't know that yet. However, he tells her he doesn't plan to make her sad, immediately causing her to blush, and the heart gauge gets filled, surprising her. Suddenly, Yuya hears someone from outside and instantly shouts out, telling them he and Mitsuki are trapped inside the bathroom. Mitsuki becomes embarrassed and tries to hide to avoid being seen with him in the bathroom, but she falls in the process, putting her and Yuya in a sus position. The person outside opens the door to find them like this, and she cheekily apologizes for interrupting their private moment. Later, the lady introduces herself to Mitsuki as Yuki, Yuya's childhood friend, but Mitsuki becomes intimidated by her massive plot size, causing her to be moody in school the next day because she only has mosquito bites as plot. When she returns home and finds Yuki with Yuya, she becomes jealous and gives Yuya an attitude, making him wonder what is wrong again. He decides to apologize for getting stuck in the bathroom the previous day, but she sarcastically tells him it's all thanks to Yuki who came to their rescue. She then mentions that she thought he told her he never had a girl in his life, but it happens that there is a girl he even calls sister. Yuya tells her he can explain, and goes on to say that Yuki used to be more like an older brother who used to beat his ass. She left a long time ago, and he is also surprised when she returned looking like a level 10 baddie. Still jealous, Mitsuki stands up to leave, but Yuki calls her to come eat some cake, but she replies that she needs to go to the restroom. In the restroom, Hiyori expresses her displeasure about having a chick with big balloons around Yuya. She tells Mitsuki they need to work on her tiny buds if she wants to win against Yuki. Hiyori then shows her the heart gauge, making her notice that the color looks a bit different. She then explains that jealousy and relationship stress causes it to drop faster, and if the dissatisfaction grows too strong, the gauge can disappear all at once, causing her death. Meanwhile, while Yuki and Yuya eat in the living room, the perv can't help but stare at her hot thighs and wishes he could finish on them. Yuki teases that he now sees her as a woman, and as he attempts to respond, Mitsuki, now obviously possessed by Hiyori, interrupts and starts acting all funny around Yuya. This makes Yuki think that they are getting along really well, but then Mitsuki suddenly notices Yuki staring at her ghost self and wonders if she can see her. Hiyori decides to do Yuki bad and deliberately throws the cake on her watermelons, pretending to fall, but Yuki gently licks the cream in a sus way, annoying Hiyori further. Yuya quickly grabs a cloth for her, but Mitsuki gets jealous too and pushes Hiyori, causing her to fall on Yuya, who then grabs and buries his head in them fun bags accidentally. Hiyori gets even more jealous and suddenly asks Yuya to choose which he prefers between big and small plot sizes, but the cultured idiot replies that he is a lover of all sizes. Hiyori becomes excited as 2 new steps form as the heart gauge fills up, but Mitsuki feels very ashamed that this is happening to her. The next day, Nanami visits them feeling very tired and exhausted, and as Mitsuki offers her water, she trips and knocks her to the ground, exposing her plot armor for Yuya to stare at. Later that morning, Yuki arrives to ask Yuya to go to school together. She invites Mitsuki to join them, but Mitsuki declines because she is jealous. Meanwhile, as she walks off, she gets talking with Hiyori, who still can't have enough of Yuki taking her spotlight. However, as she turns around to look at her, she is shocked to see Yuki staring at her and wonders if she can see her. Later at school, Mitsuki realizes that she forgot to wear her panties, and while she complains about this, Hiyori tells her the chastity belt is still okay, but Mitsuki still isn't pleased. She is soon invited by a friend to join her in eating lunch outside. However, on getting outside, she discovers that the wind has only one mission: to blow up her skirt. The other girl soon leaves to get them drinks, and while Mitsuki tries to cover herself as she waits, Yuya appears and asks her why she is always avoiding him. Yuki interrupts them and tells Yuya to quit disturbing the poor girl. But then, Wind-Kyun finally fulfills its only mission, showing Mitsuki's soft cheeks in 1080p, which immediately causes Yuya to lose balance as he falls backwards and hits his head. Following that, Yuya lands in a clinic while Mitsuki returns to class to find a package on her desk which contains a pair of panties, leaving her wondering who sent it. Following this, Mitsuki gets so embarrassed about Yuya seeing her Kiat that she can't bring herself out to face him even though he calls her for dinner. Hiyori rebukes her for this, saying she will never get clapped by him if she continues acting like this, but Mitsuki replies that she doesn't know how to be the naughty little sister Hiyori wants her to be. However, she later summons the courage to go out to eat when he is not there, but Yuya finds her eating, and he is pleased. The next morning, Yuya is woken by his dad, who tells him his honeymoon with his stepmom is going well. The old man asks him how he and Mitsuki are doing, and before ending the call, he warns him not to try something funny with that girl. Yuya steps out later and realizes that Mitsuki already made him breakfast, surprising him. However, he isn't aware that Hiyori is the one currently on board. She tells him she decided to make the food this time because he has always been fixing it. Meanwhile, Yuya still can't seem to understand her because she's giving off the vibe of someone with multiple personality disorder. As Bro tastes the food, he realizes that she used salt lake water as her main ingredient, making Mitsuki embarrassed, but he tells her he can manage it. She tries to assure him it is not always like this, but this only makes him think about her personality, which switches faster than Twitter trends. Later, while she does the dishes, Hiyori asks Mitsuki if she likes her sister-like display, but she replies with a warning, saying that she better not get too close or try to seduce Yuya, or she will take her body back, and Hiyori agrees not to. However, she tells her to sit back and watch how to act like a proper sister. Following that, they head to the store to get some food items, and seeing how Hiyori is free with Yuya, Mitsuki gets jealous that Yuya is even smiling. Yuki soon appears in the store too, and when she sees her, Hiyori quickly moves toward Yuya. Meanwhile, after she leaves, Mitsuki suddenly hears someone warning her not to stay separated for too long, and she turns to see it as Neko, but she wonders if she is talking to her or if it's just her imagination. Afterward, they head to a lake, and while Hiyori acts goofy around Yuya, Mitsuki is surprised that she can actually spend this much time with him and tries to call him Big Brother too, but she becomes embarrassed immediately. Just then, Yuya states that there used to be a girl in the neighborhood who used to call him Big Brother, and hearing this, Hiyori becomes excited and attempts to run to him, but she slips and falls into the lake. Yuya helps her up and she hugs him deeply, making Mitsuki embarrassed so that she tries taking over her body immediately but gets repelled, shocking her. She tries to touch her again, but she is repelled again, making her fear that she has now successfully become a side character in this anime. Later that night, Yuya sits by his computer to Google what might be happening with Mitsuki. At the same time, Mitsuki, still outside her body, explains to Hiyori that she can't seem to take control of her body again. She then tells Hiyori to come out now since she has had enough fun with Yuya already, but Hiyori states that this might mean that a spirit loses control over its body after staying too long outside it. She adds that she can now develop plot with Yuya as she wants and create more steps to reach the gate of heaven. She then teases that Mitsuki might perhaps be the one to pass on instead of her. Following this, Hiyori meets Yuya and begs him to let her sleep in his room, pretending to be scared by the lightning caused by the rain. He agrees to let her stay the night with him, and as he prepares his futon on the floor, she tells him to share the bed with her, but he refuses. While Hiyori is excited that she is at least in the same room with him, Mitsuki voices out in frustration, asking her what she was thinking when she asked Yuya to share the bed with her. Later that night, Yuya finds it hard to sleep because he is having a bit of tension for sleeping in the same room with a girl who is not fully his sister. Just then, he feels Hiyori's touch on his back, who then hugs him tightly, hinting that she wants to have some thick meat. She apologizes for being harsh to him and says the nasty sister he knows her to be is now gone, as she is willing to become his ideal little sister. Mitsuki tries to stop her, but she is repelled again, and she begins to feel that she might be the useless one anyway since the chemistry between Yuya and Hiyori seems great. The tension grows very strong, and Yuya gets into a mounting position, ready to ride her to Pluto, but he controls himself like a Sigma and taps her head before withdrawing, saying she doesn't have to force herself into being his sister. He tells her even though she was easy to talk to today, it's okay to be who she has always been while they slowly grow the bond between them as a family. Hearing this, Hiyori begins to cry and asks why he is so nice to Mitsuki. While she continues to talk, Yuya notices another girl talking, but as he rubs his eyes to check if he sees correctly, Hiyori suddenly leaves Mitsuki's body and tells Mitsuki to take over her body. Mitsuki wakes up to find Yuya on her pillows and immediately pushes him off before throwing him out of his own room. Meanwhile, in the room, Hiyori grabs Mitsuki's tiny nuggets and yells at her, saying there is no way she will get laid with these economy-class pillows. The next morning, he wakes up from the cushion and realizes that Mitsuki is back to her usual self of snubbing him. She tells him she's taken his advice of being who she has always been. A few days later, they all visit the fitness center with Mitsuki covering her chastity belt with a period because she can't let anyone see her in that. As she walks to the poolside, Hiyori keeps disturbing her that only a more will wear that to swim, but Mitsuki tells her to shut the up. Just then, Yuki appears with her natural floaters for the pool, which makes Mitsuki feel intimidated. As she compares her size to Yuki's, Hiyori tells her to stop, encouraging that small melons are equally legit as the big ones.
Stop the cap!
Meanwhile, as they talk, Yuki looks at them as though she can see Hiyori, surprising Mitsuki. Just then, Yuya and his friend appear and the fun begins, but Mitsuki sits alone and watches them from afar. Noticing this, Neko asks her why she is not playing with them, and she replies that she is not a fan of being in water. Mitsuki returns the question and Neko reveals that she actually just accompanied them here since her father owns the place. Meanwhile, Hiyori enters the scene, feeling frustrated that Mitsuki is not seizing the chance to get closer to Yuya. Mitsuki replies that she doesn't want to lose her perio while playing around, and besides, she doesn't know how to swim. Hiyori becomes pissed with the crap she is spitting and immediately tries to possess her body, but Mitsuki doesn't allow her in. Just then, she begins to think of how Yuya calls her by name, but she only refers to him with one of his pronouns. She soon sees Yuya's friend's sister calling him bro and becomes sad that it is difficult for her to call Yuya that. Meanwhile, Yuya notices her moodiness, but before he can do anything about it, Yuki falls on him and drowns him with her forbidden fruits. Seeing this, Mitsuki becomes afraid and quickly jumps into the pool after him. Meanwhile, Yuya comes out fine, but Mitsuki gets hurt in the process, so Yuya lifts her out of the pool like a 2 kg dumbbell, stating that he will take her to the first aid station. However, as he carries her off, her panties and perio fall off, which on seeing, Neko becomes worried that things are about to get messy. After carrying her for a while, Yuya drops Mitsuki, but suddenly notices the chastity belt she's got on, making her embarrassed. At that instant, some strangers passing start to approach them, which makes Mitsuki very worried that she is about to be exposed. But thinking fast, Yuya quickly covers her, pretending to kiss her, which scares the other ladies off. Afterward, he immediately pulls his shorts and gives them to her to wear while he walks around with panties like a deranged creep. Hearing what happened, Yuya's friend, Tori, teasingly asks if he saw her cat.
What do you mean by that?
But Yuya replies with a slap befitting of perverted fools like him. At this point, Hiyori and Mitsuki have managed to create a series of steps, and while Hiyori is excited about this, Mitsuki worries that Yuya has seen the 50 Shades of Grey belt on her. In the class the next day, Yuya starts to have naughty thoughts about Mitsuki and her sus belt and gets carried away until Yuki snaps him back into reality. She then drops a package on his desk, and upon checking he finds out it is Mitsuki's panties. He asks why the heck she brought this to him, and she tells him that she expected that Mitsuki might fall sick due to what happened the previous day, so he is the next option she could think of. The idiot gets Seuss and starts rubbing the panties on his disgusting face as he thinks about Mitsuki again. He wonders if the multiple personalities display is just an act, and she is trying to gain his attention so he can develop plot with her. He tries to take this off his mind by unconsciously hitting his face with the panties, which come off as weird to the whole class. Later in the evening, Mitsuki sulks on her bed about the fact that Yuya saw her like that, thinking that he probably now sees her as a weirdo. Hiyori, on the other hand, tries to make her see the good side of things, but Mitsuki only gets more aggravated such that she immediately goes to grab a pair of scissors and attempts to cut off the chastity belt. Meanwhile, Yuya is in the kitchen preparing dinner for them. Mitsuki cries as she attempts to use the scissors, deeply concerned that Yuya now thinks she does OnlyFans as a side hustle. To pacify her, Hiyori tells her that she can explain to him that it's some family tradition, but Mitsuki calls that BS. She tells Hiyori she hates being at the mercy of her circumstances, making Hiyori sad as she says she had no choice. Mitsuki suddenly collapses, scaring Hiyori, who immediately notices that the heart gauge is now cloudy and extremely hot. Just then, Yuya innocently approaches her door with her food and considers discussing what he saw the previous day with her. However, he suddenly hears some sonorous sounds coming from her room. He tries to be a gentleman by immediately turning to leave, but he hears her faint voice calling for help and immediately breaks into the room, where he sees her lying on the ground writhing in pain. He tries to attend to her, but she suddenly grabs him and turns him over to kiss him. She then begins the first stage of plot development. Just then, she suddenly transforms into Hiyori, shocking Yuya as he asks who the heck she is. Hiyori touches him in a way that he has never been touched, and even though the idiot wonders what she is doing, he holds her thighs like he is ready for a ride. She then bends over to get down, but he covers his face only to suddenly see that it is now Mitsuki again. Mitsuki suddenly gets off and accuses him of being a perv, but Bro defends that she led him on. She then reveals that that was not her, making him wonder where the other girl went. She suddenly collapses, which gives Yuya a great view of her bunda.
Ugh. She's got bunda.
However, he manages to cover her and take care of her. The next morning, Hiyori gets excited that the heart gauge is back to its normal state and that she was able to get a little naughty with Yuya. But Mitsuki is sad that she has finally sealed the idea in Yuya's mind that she is for the streets. Hearing this, Hiyori realizes that Mitsuki has reached her threshold and might give out before she can reach the gate of heaven. She remembers the offer from the unknown god that spoke to her and states that she really had no choice. Later during the day, on their way back from school, Yuya, still curious about Mitsuki's personality switch, asks Yuki if a person's personality can change if their living circumstances change. While Yuki wonders why he's brought this up all of a sudden, she states that a person's environment can influence them. This causes Yuya to think if Mitsuki is like that because of him, but he is not convinced that is the reason. He wonders if it is due to how she was raised by her mom, but this doesn't still make any sense. He then considers if she is influenced by her friends. He remembers seeing Hiyori with her a couple of times before and relating it to what happened the night before, and judging by Hiyori's wings, he suddenly comes up with the conclusion that Mitsuki and her strange friend have something going on, and their suspicious appearances are cosplay costumes for their naughty adventure. As they prepare to separate, Yuki asks Yuya who he thinks must have influenced her to change from how he used to know her, but he gets carried away by another activity and leaves immediately. Getting home, Mitsuki meets him and tells him he has something to say to him, but says she'd like to take a bath first. Later, while he waits for her to finish bathing, he becomes restless and racks his brain about what she might want to tell him. He suspects it might be about her love for girls and tries to comport himself so he doesn't come off as agitated to her, but dude is too dumb to come up with a solution on how to handle the situation. In the bathroom, Hiyori, currently in control of Mitsuki's body, tries calling Mitsuki, but realizes that she is still asleep. She is actually getting herself prepared for her first clapping experience, but she feels embarrassed the more she thinks about it. She reasons that if she doesn't act fast, Mitsuki's strength might give out before she reaches the gate of heaven, which will result in the two of them plunging into hell, so she stands up, determined to seize this opportunity since Mitsuki is still asleep and will not be able to stop her. A few moments later, she appears in his room with a shirt and no underwear, making Yuya embarrassed. She sits beside him and tries to bring up the topic of wanting to get down with him, but she becomes very shy, which makes her think that she has been infected with Mitsuki's shyness. She then determines to push him onto the bed and mount him, but as she plans to execute that, she slips and falls in his arms, making her even more shy. As she thinks of what to do, Mitsuki appears and yells at her, saying she already told her she doesn't want to get hammered, at least not by an ugly, clueless buffoon like Yuya. Hiyori ejects herself from the body so that Mitsuki can continue since she can't seem to get the hang of how she is feeling this time. Meanwhile, Yuya holds her and tells her she doesn't have to force herself to open up to him. He then asks if what she wants to tell him is the fact that she is into girls like herself, stating that he has seen her a couple of times with a strange girl dressed as an angel with wings. Hearing this, Hiyori and Mitsuki become shocked, and Hiyori immediately waves her hand across Yuya's face to see if he can say, but she realizes he can't. Yuya tells her he listens and doesn't judge, but advises her to be careful with the extent she goes, especially with the lock she currently wears around her plot. This embarrasses Hiya, and she throws him out of the room. From that instant, Mitsuki starts to act strangely and doesn't talk directly with Yuya because she feels too ashamed. A few days later, while Mitsuki and her friend, Ayaka, eat lunch together, Ayaka checks Mitsuki's meal and says that she will become overweight if she continues eating all of these without exercising, which makes Mitsuki feel terrible. Ayaka adds that her best option will be to attend the gym classes, prompting Mitsuki to ask if she can still join at this time, and she responds that most of the sports groups allow new members any time of the year. She suggests they go check out the sports clubs after school, and after she leaves, Hiyori tells Mitsuki she should have rejected the suggestion as she doesn't want anything reducing her time with Yuya. However, Mitsuki tells her she is going to do it anyway since Ayaka has been insisting on it for a while, so Hiyori tells her she is only allowed to check the clubs out and should not consider registering. After school, Mitsuki and Ayaka check out the tennis club, and Mitsuki is given a racket to play, but she soon gets exhausted after playing absolute nonsense, and she begs Hiyori to assist her. Hiyori initially refuses but decides to help when Mitsuki collapses. As soon as she handles the racket, she instantly becomes low-budget Serena Williams, shocking everyone with how good she is. Seeing this, the tennis club captain approaches her, asking her to join the team immediately, but the idiot soon overwhelms her with too much information and rules, scaring Mitsuki away. Following this, they head to the soccer club. As soon as they begin the match, Mitsuki becomes clueless as you in a calculus exam, so Hiyori takes over again and immediately Messi all her opponent before putting the ball behind the goal. The captain is excited that they have a Maradona among them, so she walks up to Hiyori to beg her to join the team for the next World Cup, and Hiyori instantly agrees without consulting the owner of the body. Mitsuki opposes immediately, but Hiyori states that being in the World Cup is sure to draw Yuya's attention and praise. However, Mitsuki doesn't give a shit about that. Afterward, she is taken to a private room to register, but upon seeing all the useless forms she has to fill out, she immediately Mitsuki leaves looking like she was run over by a truck, wondering why all the captains are like that. They decide to check out other clubs, but discover that the conditions are not any better, so they finally head to the Kendo club, where they see Yuki. She tells them they will begin with the basics, but just then, Yuya and his friend arrive with Neko, and seeing them, Hiyori tells Mitsuki this is the chance to defeat Yuki in front of Yuya. So Mitsuki approaches Yuki and suddenly challenges her to a fight, shocking her, but she agrees anyway. As Hiyori prepares to fight, determined to make Yuki pay for getting that close to her big brother, she wears the helmet but is immediately repelled by the nasty smell coming from that shit. However, she manages to put it on, but as she prepares to fight her, she begins to zone out, which Tori mistakes for the Drukin technique. Hiyori tries to bear with the smell but soon checks out to avoid dying the second time, exposing Mitsuki to Yuki's attack and knocking her out instantly. Later, when Mitsuki regains consciousness, Mitsuki pleads on Yuki's behalf, asking her to forgive her, but Mitsuki replies that she is not mad with Yuki, but with a certain idiot floating in the air. She then tells Ayaka that she is done trying out the sports club, and Ayaka suggests they try out cultural clubs instead. Tori quickly offers to join them. They snub his ass and leave, making him wonder if he is really that ugly like people say. Following this, Mitsuki and Ayaka try different cultural clubs, but are still not satisfied with the experience. They finally reach the theater club, and Mitsuki is shocked to find Yuya and Tori there. She asks Neko why they are here, and she explains that they had innocently come to check out the theater clue, but Yuya was hijacked for a role since there is a shortage of males in the club. Mitsuki then asks about the plot of the story, and Neko tells her it is the love story of a man torn between his stepsister and his girlfriend. The drama soon begins, and Yuya, the protagonist, struggles to choose between his girlfriend, Neko, and his stepsister, which is Mochi, Tori's sister. Neko suddenly appears and asks Yuya to marry her, which makes Mochi sad. However, on the wedding day, Neko appears in casual wear and not a wedding gown, and breaks Yuya's heart. She then pushes Mitsuki, dressed in a wedding gown, to the stage, surprising Yuya because this is not in the script. Meanwhile, Mochi is tied to prevent her from interrupting even though it's meant to be her role, but she manages to free herself. As she approaches the couple, she steps on Mitsuki's gown, causing her to fall and revealing her chastity belt beneath her gown. Mitsuki suddenly wakes up and realizes it's a dream. Just then, Yui appears in a sauce apron, causing her to scream in shock, but she wakes up and realizes that it's a dream too. She sees Ayaka on steroids lying beside her, shocking her too, but it's still a dream. Just then, he receives a message and goes to check, only to see a message hinting that one of the dreams might be true. The following week, Neko appears with 2 tickets to the aquarium and gives them to Yuya, asking if he would love to go. Seeing this, Tori asks for his own tickets, too, and Neko replies that she gave them to his little sister already, but this only makes him pissed because he knows that stuff ain't getting to him since he knows that he has to be the most annoying dude on his sister's hate list. Later in the evening, Mitsuki returns home from school feeling tired, and when Hiyori asks why she is, she replies that Hiyori is to blame because she kept her up late the previous night, doing forbidden things to her, and Hiyori defends that she needs to do 3 sets of massage her melons frequently to make them bigger. Getting inside the house, Mitsuki finds a sus magazine in the sitting room and is shocked that such is inside the house. As she flips through the pages, Hiyori shows her that Yuya must really be into girls that have mighty weapons of mass destruction and offers to make hers bigger. She brings out a magic wand immediately and casts a spell that instantly makes them swole. They continue to enlarge until they burst out, but Mitsuki suddenly wakes up from the dream. Realizing that it's just a dream, she becomes relieved and immediately practices gratitude for tiny bouncies. Yuya walks in at this moment and overhears her silly statement, making her embarrassed. However, she becomes excited when Yuya shows her the aquarium tickets and asks if she would like to go. The next day, they both set out for the aquarium, and as they step out of the house, Hiyori, who is obviously currently in control, holds Yuya tight. They meet Yuki and Yuya asks if she would come along, but she declines as Hiyori secretly wishes she says no. On the bus, Yuya is surprised that she is very excited about the aquarium, and Hiyori replies that she is glad that she is getting to go with him, turning his cheeks red. Getting to the aquarium, Hiyori excitedly views the fishes and runs around like a child who got freed from a protective mother. Meanwhile, Mitsuki is embarrassed about being here alone with him, as it only makes it feel more like a date. She immediately starts to fold like an idiot as she thinks about this. She pushes Hiyori out of her body while at this, shocking Hiyori, who tells her this is the wrong time to come back. Yuya calls Mitsuki at that moment, and she gets even more embarrassed as she thinks about this more like a date. A child bumps into her, and she falls to her knees, but she climaxes in the process, filling the heart gauge. Later, as they walk, Yuya turns to tell Mitsuki that many kids run around unsupervised, adding that children are allowed into the aquarium at only a small charge. He further says that he, Yuki, and other friends used to come here to play a lot when they were much younger, and Mitsuki, surprised, tells him that she never knew that they used to charge since she was always allowed to enter without a fee whenever she wanted because her mom used to work here. She then goes on to talk about how she was always lonely while her mother worked since no kid wanted to play with a girl who looked like she was shoved out of the underworld. She couldn't be at home alone either, so she just had to stay in the aquarium and find a way to make herself happy by playing with fish. Mitsuki tells Yuya she didn't like being alone at home when she was young, which is probably what makes it weird to come home and have someone there now. Hearing this, Yuya tells her there is a chance he must have seen her before then, but she replies that she can't remember seeing another ugly kid besides her come around then. She suddenly asks if a girl named Hiyori was among the friends he always came with then, but he replies that he doesn't remember such a name. Mitsuki excuses herself to the restroom after this, where Hiyori asks her why she suddenly asked Yuya a question about her. She replies that she is just curious, but Hiyori tells her that Hiyori is not her real name, but just a cool name she found in a comic book. This makes Mitsuki pissed that she hid something as important as that from her, but Hiyori replies that Mitsuki never seemed interested in her situation, so it wasn't so necessary to tell her. Mitsuki returns to Yuya, and she shows her the Dr. Fish, which are known to have great dermatological benefits. He puts his hand in the fish tank, and the fish immediately gather around his fingers, start eating his dead skin cells away. Afterward, he does the same for his feet and encourages Mitsuki to get in the pond too, which when she does, begins to tickle her. She soon starts to make sus sounds that show the cultured creep is getting switched on by fish. Meanwhile, as she enjoys this pleasurable feeling, Hiyori also feels the sensation in her body until Mitsuki finally finishes, and the heart gauge gets filled, scaring some random idiots away because what the fuck was that? Mitsuki gets embarrassed and blames Yuya for making her do this, but he quickly apologizes as he pats her head, giving her a nostalgic feeling of when her mother used to pat her head as a kid. Later, they head home, and as they approach the house, Yuya quickly goes in to put on all the lights and welcomes her in to give her the experience of returning home to meet someone just as she claimed to like. A few minutes later, as she retires to her bed, Hiyori tells her that the reason she gets corny so easily recently is because they now sync better than before as their hearts seem to now be connected. Hiyori tells her she will pretend she doesn't know she likes Yuya already, but Mitsuki instantly denies it, saying there is no way she would like that crook. Meanwhile, outside, Neko realizes everything is going well between Mitsuki and Yuya and wonders what will happen next. The next day, when Mitsuki returns from school, she feels terrible because of the math test she has the following day. She soon enters the house and discovers that Nanami already moved in with them since their place is closer to her workplace. As Nanami prepares to leave for work, she tells her she brought a kotatsu with her and she can use it in her room if she is cold. Mitsuki heads to the room immediately and puts on the kotatsu to help keep herself warm as she studies for her maths test. However, a few minutes later, the lazy idiot starts to feel sleepy. Hiyori starts to yawn too, but Mitsuki cautions her to stop as it would only make her feel sleepier. Hiyori replies that she also feels sleepy, shocking Mitsuki as she wonders how in hell a ghost feels sleepy. The two idiots soon fall asleep, and just then, Yuya returns home from school. He sees Nanami's shoes by the entrance and goes in to check for her, only to find her sleeping and her strange friend beside her. He wonders when she came over and reasons that Mitsuki might really have that kind of relationship with her. He soon sees her trying to solve maths problems and realizing that she got them all wrong. He is not surprised since she is not so smart after all and decides to correct all the answers for her. While at it, he starts to feel sleepy too and joins them in sleeping under the kotatsu. Several minutes later, Mitsuki suddenly feels like she is tied and notices a strange hand grabbing her tiny chesticles. She notices it is Yuya and wonders why he is doing this when they don't even seem to have any chemistry between them. However, she realizes that he is still asleep, thinking it's his mom. So she gets pissed and smacks his disgusting face, but he doesn't wake up. Mitsuki soon discovers that he has corrected the wrong answers for her, and she becomes embarrassed when he wakes up. He tells her he is happy to sit under the kotatsu with everyone and asks her if her friend has gone home already, shocking her. Later, as Mitsuki walks back to her room, Hiyori complains of feeling sluggish from sleeping too long under the kotatsu, but this only makes Mitsuki think that she must be a ghost from Temu, because what kind of ghost feels sluggish? Following this, she goes to the kitchen to cook for Yuya, and as she makes the preparation, Hiyori teases that she looks like she is happily cooking for her husband, but Mitsuki denies that she is only doing it because cooking is her hobby.
Stop the cap.
She thinks about the lunch she made for him and then goes in search of his lunchbox. She discovers it's still in his bag, and while she is reluctant to check his bag, Hiyori quickly possesses her body, opens the bag, and then leaves the remaining to Mitsuki. Upon checking the bag, Mitsuki is surprised to find another lunchbox bigger than the one she gave Yuya, and soon realizes that while the dude ate the other all up, he only took a few bites from hers, making her sad. Yuki soon appears with a lunchbox, and Mitsuki realizes that she is behind the other lunchbox in Yuya's bag. Yuki reveals that she only started making lunch for him recently since he said he makes his lunch himself, and hearing this, Mitsuki ironically tells her she is welcome to make his lunch for him since he seems not to like the one she makes for him. Yuya and Tori at that moment, and Yuya instantly notices that Mitsuki is in a bad mood again, as usual. She attempts to take her leave, but seeing her mood, Yuki quickly offers to fix dinner for everyone and invites Mitsuki to cook with her. As Mitsuki intends to decline, Hiyori snatches her body and says yes. Later in Mitsuki's room, she blames Hiyori for accepting to assist, and Hiyori replies that she only did it because she wants a chance to get lovey-dovey with Yuya, and she doesn't want that big melon-sized Yuki to get the upper hand. Meanwhile, Mitsuki expresses her sadness about the fact that Yuya left her food but ate all of Yuki's, which means he didn't like her cooking after all. Hiyori says they need to do something about it, and she immediately goes to dress in a maid's uniform, surprising Yuya when he sees her. However, Yuki takes the spotlight again by acting like a wife, saying he should go and shower as dinner might take a while. Hiyori gets jealous and quickly interrupts by serving him some tea. Afterward, as they prepare the dinner, Mitsuki is surprised at how good Yuki is, compared to her who recently just started to learn to cook. As she said this, Yuki realizes that Mitsuki has also been making lunch for Yuya and apologizes for disturbing. However, Mitsuki says she doesn't have to be sorry since her cooking is shitty anyway, and Yuya seems to enjoy Yuki's food more. Yuki hugs her and tells her she is just overthinking it, saying that Yuya must have just been full or something. She adds that Yuya once mentioned that he is happy that Mitsuki is getting to cook for him, surprising her, and she later wonders if this really gives Yuya even the slightest joy possible. Hiyori suddenly pushes Mitsuki out and is determined to get better at cooking to make Yuya happier. Yuki enters at that moment, and they both accidentally collide against each other, spilling some cream on Mitsuki's body. Following this, Hiyori gets pissed that Yuki was careless, but Mitsuki tries to convince her that she didn't do it on purpose. Just then, Hiyori comes up with an idea to dress in a sew's apron, but Mitsuki gets embarrassed and takes over her body. But unfortunately, Yuya enters in his creation state at that moment. However, the moron doesn't leave but instead admires the apron, making Mitsuki mad that she gives him a befitting slap. Later, when Yuki discovers that the dimwit was slapped, she reasons that the way things are going, the two still have a long way from being in love. Meanwhile, in the other dimension, Hiyori is excited that they are almost at the gate of heaven, but Mitsuki is embarrassed that the heart gauge got filled from seeing Yuya in the buff. Some days later, Mitsuki reads the comic book Hiyori got her name from, and while at it, she tries conversing with Hiyori but finds out she is asleep, making her wonder what and who she really is. A few hours later, Mitsuki starts to complain about the design of the chastity belt and asks Hiyori if there is anything she can do about it. However, Hiyori replies that she shouldn't be worried about it since no one sees it on her anyway. Mitsuki replies that Yuya has seen it on her a couple of times, and he probably sees her as the girl who wears weird panties now. Hiyori replies that she is just overthinking things, but Mitsuki tells her that this has caused her a lot of humiliation, unlike Hiyori, who is putting no efforts toward remembering her past and is only floating around like a useless fool with dirty thoughts on how to develop plot by all means. Hiyori replies that there is nothing she can do about it, but Mitsuki thinks that's bullshit and says she needs to put in some efforts at least. Hiyori feels hurt and tells her there is no point since she is dead already, before disappearing. Mitsuki starts to look for her but soon sees a letter from her, insulting her surfboard chest and stating that she is leaving. Reading this, Mitsuki feels violated and tells her to get the fuck too. However, she soon begins to miss her since she already used to having her around, but she also feels that it's great to have her freedom back as it's been months she had her time to herself. She somehow feels that she was too harsh but convinces herself that it was the best thing to do. Later during dinner, as Mitsuki eats, she starts thinking about Hiyori again and feels her heart throbbing for Yuya, surprising her that she feels this way when Hiyori is not there. Just then, she and Yuya attempts to take the ketchup jar at the same time, and she begins to feel hot between her legs as he touches her, making Yuya wonder what is happening. He quickly rushes over to start rubbing her back thinking she is choking, but this only worsens the situation. He grabs her from the back and starts jerking her in a similar way to a famous clapping style, making her feel so high until she reaches climax and fills the heart gauge. Afterward, she gets embarrassed and slaps him before running off to the toilet. She wonders why her heart was on 200 miles per hour even though Hiyori was not there. She then tries to pee and shockingly discovers that the chastity belt is gone. She hits the streets immediately in search of her, surprising Yuya, who sees her leaving, so he follows after her. Mitsuki gets injured while running, and after searching for a while, she reaches a playground where she starts to think that the stairs might have reached the gate of heaven and she has crossed over. Yuya meets her here and asks what is wrong, and she lies that she is preparing for a marathon, but thank God Yuya is not too dumb to believe that. He presses further after closing her wound, and she reveals that she had a fight with a friend and the girl hasn't returned since then. Yuya asks if it is the girl with the ribbon and wings, shocking Mitsuki before saying yes, but she is surprised he doesn't even find this strange. Yuya then suggests they split up to look for her friend, and when she tries to discourage him, he tells her he wants to because Hiyori is her precious friend. They split up immediately, agreeing to converge again after an hour of searching. As Hiyori runs around feeling very bad that Hiyori was selfish and could not even say goodbye, she almost tears up when Hiyori suddenly appears and asks what the heck she is doing there. Mitsuki asks where she has been, and she replies that since she left home herself, returning will reduce her aura, surprising Mitsuki because she was expecting more. She then asks why the chastity belt suddenly disappeared, and Hiyori immediately summons it again, shocking her. Mitsuki heads to the toilet immediately and sadly discovers that this one is even more sus and weirder than the previous. She complains about this, and Hiyori replies that she went to get a new design for her from the gods, since she was complaining about the previous two. Mitsuki replies that she didn't want it changed. She wanted it removed completely, but Hiyori tells her she is demanding too much as getting it changed was even a rare exception. Mitsuki then says that she had thought that she had crossed over when the belt suddenly disappeared, which kind of made her sad, and Hiyori apologizes for getting her worried. Afterward, they head back home together with Hiyori teasing her that she missed her, but Mitsuki doesn't accept. Meanwhile, this dude is still busy asking around for Hiyori. The following week, Mitsuki gets 3 free spin tickets for the chance to win a grand prize, and while she expects that she would just win a tissue or something ridiculous, she shockingly wins a hot springs vacation for 2. A few days later, she heads to a hot springs inn with Yuya, and as they alight from the bus, he offers to help her with her luggage, but she tells him she is not handicapped. Mitsuki becomes embarrassed at the thought of them being alone at the inn, which may lead to some more plot. Just then, Hiyori tells her she is not alone, and she turns to see that a whole family came along. Hiyori feels terrible as she says that she wishes it is just them with Yuya, but Mitsuki blames her for being the cause since she had influenced the 4 spins to win the grand prizes. Hiyori replies that she thought it would be cool to win all 4, but she never realized this much people would tag along. However, Mitsuki tells her to behave herself here as there are many people around. Just then, she sees Yuya asking to help Yuki with her luggage too, and she feels like an idiot for refusing earlier. She immediately becomes jealous, and Yuya, noticing that she is in a bad mood, decides to give her some snacks. Following that, they enter the inn, and this old hag takes them to their rooms, but on their way, the girls thank Mitsuki for winning these for them and advise her to try the lottery tickets too since she seems to be very gifted. However, she replies that winning the hot springs vacation was just sheer luck. Later, after getting to their room, they head to the hot spring, and seeing Mitsuki covering her body, Ayaka tells her to stop behaving like she's got more than pea-sized melons, as it's the girl's bath anyway. Just then, Yuki appears with her bazookas, which attracts the compliments of the others, but Yuki, trying to be humble, replies that large cargoes have a toll on her shoulders. However, this only annoys Hiyori, who remains jealous for how big her melons are. A few seconds later, Neko appears in a swimsuit, prompting them to ask her why she has chosen to be the odd one, and Neko replies that it's her family policy to never reveal too much skin in public. They soon enter the hot spring, and Mochi mentions that Yuya must be bored and lonely since he is the only boy among them. However, Ayaka reminds her that Tori is also boy even though he is currently sick, but Mochi doesn't count him because she hates her brother more than you hate your ugly face. However, Yuki happily shares that Yuya will be fine since he used to play with many girls in the neighborhood when he was young. The others become fascinated by the fact that Yuki and Yuya are childhood friends, but Mitsuki only watches in silence, obviously jealous. Afterward, while at the dining table eating and Tori simping over Nanami, Neko realizes that Mitsuki is not at the table. Ayaka reveals that she had excused herself to the restroom and has not returned yet. Hearing this, Yuya stands up immediately and goes in search of Mitsuki, which leaves the others saying that he is really a brother even though they don't seem to be on good terms. Meanwhile, as Mitsuki walks along a hallway looking like she just lost her life savings to a Krikta rug pull, Hiyori tells her she ought to be trying to increase her appeal to Yuya, but Mitsuki replies that she is full. However, Hiyori tells her it's because she is jealous, but Mitsuki denies and defends that she only feels this way because of her. Just then, Yuya appears, asking if she is okay, but she only gets mad, saying she has the choice to do whatever she wants. Hearing this, Yuya apologizes for behaving like a brother and tells her to suit herself as he leaves. Mitsuki is shocked and attempts to stop him, but slips and falls in the process. Yuya rushes over to her immediately, but he unexpectedly sees her sus plot armor, which upon realizing, Mitsuki lands him a slap before running away. Yuya wonders what is always wrong with her, and just then, drunken Nanami suddenly grabs him from behind and presses herself on him, but Dude tells her he doesn't do cougars. Meanwhile, Hiyori pushes Mitsuki to the ground outside her body and tells her she can't keep up with the shit she is doing. She decides to take over from here and immediately heads to the mixed bath intending to go dance before him, but she shockingly finds him and Yuki in a compromising position. A few moments earlier, Yuya was just in the bath thinking of how Nanami puked on him when he suddenly finds Yuki, making them embarrassed. He wonders why she is here, and this was when he realized that he had mistakenly entered the mixed bath when he was rushing to wash himself from Nanami's disgusting stomach content. The conversation soon gets sus between them, and when Yuki attempts to leave, she falls in with her balloons face down. It is at this moment Hiyori entered, and seeing them, she instantly gets out of Mitsuki's body, leading Mitsuki to handle this, who then becomes embarrassed and leaves immediately. Bro becomes worried and quickly follows her so he can explain, and meeting her, she tells him she doesn't give a damn about what happened between them. He tries to touch her, but she tells him to get his disgusting cultured hands off her, and Yuya responds that no one is trying to get cultured with her. However, she comments that but he just did with Yuki, making Yuya realize that she is jealous. She immediately denies it, but he pets her head and tells her he has been happy she is making lunch for him, making her blush. He then offers to give her a piggyback ride, but she wants a different kind of back ride.
What do you mean by that?
Following this, while she sits in the arcade room, Yuki approaches her to clear the air, but she replies that she wasn't bothered about them or anything like that.
Stop the cap.
However, as Yuki leaves, she tells her she won't lose to her, which triggers Hiyori a bit because that could only mean she is declaring war against them. Meanwhile, Neko, who had been sitting close and listening to them, reasons that Yuki is already losing her guard, so she decides to shake Yuya up a little. In the midnight, she meets Yuya and suddenly asks her if she has any feelings for Mitsuki. Yuya is surprised and wonders why she is suddenly asking this, to which she replies that she became curious after she saw his interactions with Mitsuki and Yuki earlier that night. He is surprised Yuki is also in the discussion and tells her that Yuki is more like an elder sister to him, as they have always been together since childhood, so he has no feelings toward her. Neko then asks about Mitsuki, saying he at least didn't know her since childhood, and he replies that even though Mitsuki might be cute, she has now become family, and he sees her like a little sister. Neko tells him that the law allows relationship between two unrelated stepchildren, shocking him, and then she asks again if he really hasn't thought of anything happening between them before. He tells her no and reasons to himself that he can't let her know he's some indecent thoughts when he saw her brain-frying panties. Just then, Neko grabs his face and says he is making things difficult. He is a numbskull who has no clapping experience. She then tells him she wonders what would happen if she switched on his naughty side and proceeds to kiss him. The next day, he oversleeps, and no matter how Tori tries to wake him, he doesn't wake up. Mochi and other girls enter at that moment and find Tori in a weird position above Yuya. Mochi runs to kick him off, thinking he was about to diddy his ass. However, Tori explains that he has been trying to wake Yuya up, but he is not responding. Meanwhile, as they gather around him, wondering what is wrong, Rose suddenly wakes up, and looking around, he sees Mitsuki looking cutesy and demure, so he compliments her, shocking the others. He then tells her she would have been a very lovely sister if she wasn't always grumpy like a frustrated brokey. Yuki is surprised he is saying this, and leans in to ask if he is still half asleep, but he shockingly grabs her fluffy pillow and presses it a little before saying these shit can provide milk enough for New York City. She becomes embarrassed and leaves a slap on his face before running out of the room. Just then, Neko appears and claims she is the one responsible for this using a book she found on hypnosis. She adds that she only made Yuya honest with his true desires, which will wear off after a while. She then tells them to ask him whatever question they want, as there is a high chance they would get honest answers. Later in the bus on their way back, Yuya brutally and honestly talks about all his friends, and upon reaching their destination, Nanami excuses herself, saying she's got to attend to some work. However, before she leaves, Yuya suddenly states that she would be more popular with guys if only she were modest and could control her drinking. Meanwhile, hearing this, Mitsuki thinks about what Neko said concerning asking him any question they want answers for. Later that evening, as Yuya retires to bed, he tells Yuki that she has really changed a lot, prompting her to ask what about her changed, and he replies that she seems to have gained more kindness. However, he adds that she doesn't have to force herself to change her past. Yuki soon meets Mitsuki, who tells her she can go home. She will handle the rest, making Hiyori excited that they will be alone with Yuya. Yuki initially tries to refuse, but suddenly mentions that Mitsuki should be fine since her partner is around. Mitsuki and Hiyori are shocked, and Yuki tells them that she has always had a sense of the supernatural since she was young. She adds that she decided not to mention it before because she realized that Hiyori doesn't seem evil, and they both get along well. After she leaves, Mitsuki serves Yuya a cup of tea while he is asleep, and as she leaves, he wakes up immediately. He then starts to think about all the nutty things he did in the day, especially to Yuki, and reasons that he needs to apologize. However, the moron immediately starts desiring to touch those fun bags again, but he cautions himself. Just then, he begins to think of Mitsuki too, and what Neko asked him, and the flashes of her sus panties rushes to his mind again, which he thinks are cosplay panties. Meanwhile, in Mitsuki's room, Hiyori suggests they start making advances at Yuya since he already said she's cute, but Mitsuki replies that Yuya must have meant she is not cute because she is always grumpy. She also adds that the gauge fills up without much efforts anyway, since all it takes is making Hiyori heart throb. Hiyori instantly claims that Mitsuki's heart also throbs and immediately pushes her to the bed to start doing dirty things your single ass has always wished for. Yuya barges in at that moment, looking like a predator on a mission as he approaches her, making Mitsuki turn all red, thinking he is about to punish her with his rod since he is still under the hypnotic influence. However, he suddenly blurts that she should stop wearing those sus panties because they are not cool. Mitsuki gets angry immediately and throws the blockhead out of her room. At the same time in a cafe, Neko bursts into laughter, wondering if they are both idiots, as she never expected this result after setting all that up for them. While Mitsuki thinks about what Yuya just said, Hiyori becomes sober and tells her to come with her. She shows Mitsuki that the steps have now reached the gate of heaven and she is about to cross. The gate opens and they hold hands together as they walk up the stairs. Hiyori finally tells Mitsuki that she is yielding Yuya to her and she should tell him one day that a girl used to love him. She adds that if she is reborn, she will like to return as the product of their intense clapping sessions, embarrassing her. Mitsuki wakes up the next day to her normal life with no chastity belt, and as she steps out for school that morning, she shockingly refers to Yuya as Big Brother. However, on her way to school thinking about the whole thing with Hiyori, she suddenly sees feathers dropping from the sky, and there again is the pain in her ass. She wonders why she is here again, and Hiyori immediately takes her to the other dimension. She pushes her through the gate, which leads them to another place designated as the second floor. Hiyori shows her that they need to begin their new adventure of creating more steps to get to the next gate. She then activates the chastity belt again and asks her, "Shall we?" traumatizing the poor girl immediately. What new challenges will these two magnum-creating freaks face? If you watched this far, you are a real G. Comment rec to confuse the fake fans. Also, give this video a like if you loved it, and if you want to watch another recap like this, click this video over here.